Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, a lot of talk about in terms of the fights that happened over the weekend. In terms of the videos I have planned, so obviously I was going to do 3 reasons why Danny Dubois loses to Usyk, and obviously I've already done a 3 reasons on Dubois. That has to get re-uploaded. Top Rank didn't like me using the footage from the Kevin Lorena fight, so I've gone and fixed that. So I'll re-upload that probably today or tomorrow. Um, but it's been a bit of a nightmare here because there was storms all around Dublin on Friday night. Just to bore you with some of the details, there was major storms around Dublin on Friday, and where I live, there was a lot of like branches down and poles down. So it meant that there was power, but it meant that the Wi-Fi went, and apparently it won't be fixed till tomorrow. So I've had no Wi-Fi to do any videos with. I do have data, but it's not great, especially considering the Wi-Fi is down. So if I was to do a video, I mean, it just wouldn't, especially a review of the week video, which are normally 20 plus minutes. Yeah, it wouldn't do it. It wouldn't upload it, I don't think, with the data. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go with my neighbours later. They're on Sky broadband, so they're fine. They weren't affected by it. So I'm going to upload a couple of videos up there for during, but hopefully by tomorrow, back to normal. We'll see. In terms of some of the fights of the week, and it also meant I couldn't watch the DAZN card last night because the data wasn't strong enough to get to stream it. And yeah, obviously I couldn't watch it on my TV around that because obviously the zone is Wi-Fi, so not ideal. I did see clips of the Cyrus Patterson fight, and I also seen that Galal Yafai, not Gamal, Galal Yafai, you get mixed up between the two of them, knocked Tommy Frank out in the first round. Tommy Frank actually fought Jay Harris, I think it was in his last fight. He had success in that fight, but ultimately he lost. But it took Jay Harris, and Jay Harris, a former world title challenger, took him about 9-10 rounds to get rid of him, and Yafai did it in a round. So impressive stuff there from Yafai. I think with Eddie Hearn, what he's realised is, yeah, he can fast track him to some extent, but there's fast tracking him, and then there's just going way into the deep end. And I think he realised that with that split decision win Yafai had, that it's like, okay, let's slow him down a wee bit. That was good for him. Cyrus Patterson obviously lost last night against, is it Cohen Walker, I think the guy's name was. Now look, I've said this since Cyrus Patterson turned pro. I watched him a good bit as an amateur. I've seen him in the WSB, and never impressed me. And I mean, he was laid out in the WSB. I forget by who now, but he was badly laid out. So I always kind of thought, right, you're in your mid-20s and you're getting laid out by guys in the amateurs. It doesn't scream out to me that you're the most durable in the world. So I was always kind of adamant that Patterson would probably end up getting found out pretty damn quick. And I was right, that's what happened last night. He was down a couple of times in the corner, stopped it. Look, I don't know. I don't expect much out of him, to be honest with you. And just judging by what I saw last night, I don't think there is going to be much. But you could say that about what I seen on the Frank Warren show on Friday, which was actually a pretty good card. I seen Nathaniel Collins, who is a Scottish fighter, featherweight, get a first round knockout win over Ramza Hamza. Now, this was over in like 25 seconds. It was a very good right hook, I should say. It was a right hook that Collins landed, and that was it. I mean, Razma Hamza he was done after that shot. And yeah, he's only got one loss prior to that, and that was a point loss as far as I believe. So very impressive statement from Nathaniel Collins there. Really, really good stuff. In terms of the main event, now the main event was fantastic. It was a great, cracking little fight. I really enjoyed it. Dennis McCann versus Beloute. As I said in the preview, Beloute is a known commodity now at this stage, and Frank Warren seems to rely on him almost like an acid test for a lot of his prospects, and more often than not, Beloute tends to, if not spring the upset, really make you question where these prospects are going. I mean, I remember he lost a close fight to Conlon, and some people felt that Beloute actually beat Conlon. That was about 2 years ago now. He's a solid European level contender. It's really what he is. He's not world level, but he's solid European level as Beloute. And I thought, considering from his last fight against Andrew Keynes, that he maybe was starting to slide a bit, but in this fight, I mean, he showed none of that. It was a draw. The fight was stopped in the ninth round after an accidental clash of heads, and the scorecards, 2 of them had a draw and 1 had McCann ahead, so it was a majority decision draw. Honestly, I felt that Beloute was slightly ahead, right? But it was a very nip and tuck fight. Like, it's not like he was ahead by like 3 points and a draw is monstrous. No, it was a close nip and tuck fight. Like, McCann would have his moments of success, Belute would have his moments of success. The third round, Belute started that round off really strong, and McCann was able to peg him back. It was a really entertaining fight, and judging by how the scores were after 9, because if it's a technical decision, you have to still score the round it stopped in. So that's why we were getting 86 scorecards, because they have to score. Only if it's a technical decision, they have to score the round in which the fight is stopped in. So if we'd have got the 10th round, there was only one round left, it was a 10-rounder. It has it here on BoxRec that was a 12-rounder. I'm pretty sure that was a 10-rounder. I'm fairly sure that said it was that was a 10-rounder. But if it wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm nearly sure in the feed it said 10 rounds. But it would have been interesting, because it was a real nip and tuck fight. It was a very, very entertaining fight by both guys, and look, I'd quite like to see a rematch. Dennis McCann, and I've praised Dennis McCann myself on here. He is a good fighter. He has a lot of talent, but that really was worrying how easy he was getting hit by Belute. I mean, Belute couldn't miss him in there at times. So McCann has ability. I don't think anyone's going to second guess that. He has ability, certainly. But he's going to have to tighten up that defence. To be honest with you, McCann really should be beating a Belute. He really should. He has all the talent in the world, I think, to do it. But on Friday, he just forgot about a lot of it, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't be shocked if Warren tries to do a rematch with them. I know they were talking about having the winner face Liam Davis. I would say get the rematch underway and see what happens. It was a very good fight, and there will be a bit of demand for a rematch. You could do it on a big undercard maybe somewhere. Who knows if you're doing, but you could do it on a fight night on a Friday, or if you have a decent undercard for a big fight. Maybe say Joe Joyce is fighting someone, say he beats Zhilei Zhang and he's fighting God knows who. You could do that as a co-main easily. Because it'd be a good fight. It's a very good fight. So that was the Warren card. That was the 2 cards over the weekend. And on the Warren card and on the Matchroom card, well, obviously the Matchroom card I only saw snippets of the 2 main events, and the Warren card I did watch, but I only watched like the last 2 fights, and they were very good fights. They're very good fights. You know, sometimes, and it happened a lot, like I know Eddie Hearn sells these Saturday night shows as the next gen shows, and that's what they are. Like, there's no hiding, they are next gen shows. But I miss when he used to do them on the weekday. Remember when he was on Sky, and he obviously had more fighters at the time. I mean, he got pretty much Rio squad, apart from Joe Joyce and maybe 1 or 2 other fighters. He pretty much got the bulk of that Rio squad. So he was able to do those next gen shows. They were absolutely brilliant, those next gen shows on Sky, because they weren't sold as, 50-50 fights. They were sold as kind of seeing the next generation coming up, right? But a lot of those fights ended up being barn burners. They really did. Some of those fights on there were really, really good, and we saw upsets as well. So I missed those shows during the week. I obviously get probably why he's doing them on a Saturday now, because probably you get more people turning up for them on a Saturday than opposed to during the week. You probably sell more tickets, you can have a bigger venue, you sell more everything. So I get from a financial point of view, probably does make more sense to do them on a Saturday than it would to do them on, say, a Thursday or a Wednesday like he used to do. I get that, but I thought that was a nice niche little thing Hearn had going there when he was doing the next gen shows and he was doing them on the weekday. For me, it just added, so it was something kind of in the middle of your week to look forward to. Do you know that sort of way? I like that, and I thought that was a nice little thing he was doing, like a nice little niche thing that no one else was really doing, certainly in the UK, because obviously midweek, you see cards in Japan happen midweek and stuff like that, but in the UK, in Europe, you don't really see big shows. You see Friday, yeah, but a Friday fight night, that's been there since God knows when. It's always been a thing. ESPN back in the day, back in the 90s, did they do Tuesday fight nights or something? I think it was a Tuesday. And there's just something about those midweek cards, and I get that, like, financially it's probably not as much money you can make from doing a card during the week than you could from the weekend. And I get that. I guess it's a business at the end of the day still. So, but that was just something niche that I enjoyed back in the day. At Warren cards, a lot of his Friday fight nights, I've really enjoyed them. I mean, I'm sure Warren hasn't, because some of his prospects have lost on them. But when he does those Friday fight nights, I mean, they're kind of like, you watch them not expecting much, and you nearly always get at least one good fight. At least one really, really good fight. So when people say, boxing is this, it's like, look at like grassroots level, right? Which is kind of what some of those next gen shows and the Friday fight nights that Warren does are. They're essentially kind of grassroots. But they're more memorable, and again, I'm just using them because, well, it's true. They're more memorable than some of the flipping pay-per-views that Sky have put on with Ben Shalom over the last year and a half. I mean, seriously, like, I'm seeing here that Eubank versus Smith 2, we knew it would be on pay-per-view. It's going to be £19.95, 20 quid. Do you remember any of the fights on the undercard of the first fight? That's how forgettable it was. Like, Can Brook. Literally, like, I remember Bradley Ray winning, and that's it. That's the only fight I remember from the Kell Brook card. Like, they're so forgettable. Whereas some of these shows, and they're not sold as, you know, amazing extravaganzas, but you get some good action. You see some good fights on them. So maybe there's a thing for that. Just saying. Maybe there is a niche little market there for midweek, but who knows? I'm only just thinking out loud there with some of them. So in a week filled with drug tests, fails, UCAD, etc., Zolani Tete has been banned from boxing for 4 years, backdated to his last fight after testing positive for a banned substance, Stanazola, I think is how you say that, in a UCAD drug test around the time of his win versus Jason Cunningham in July of last year. Frank Warren revealed that. Now, I was at that fight, and I actually was in an elevator with Zolani Tete, and very nice man, but he really pieced Jason Cunningham up in that fight. Like, it was a bad knockout, a real bad knockout, and Cunningham, you could argue, hasn't been the same since then. Will that be turned to a no contest? It probably should. So essentially he's out of the ring for 3 years now, because first year is backdated. Okay, that was 2022, so it's going to be 26 before he can get in the ring. Zolani Tete, last time I checked, was in his mid to late 30s, so that's his career basically done. And that's basically his career over in a nutshell. You know, Zolani Tete. And UCAD normally do tend to give strict bans. They're normally strict like that. It can vary from fighter to fighter. Like, Tete's got a 4-year ban there. Dylan White, when he tested positive for Jack 3D, bear in mind, when Dylan White tested positive, because some people are going to say, yeah, but he was when he tested positive the first time in 2012, no one knew who the hell he was. He was on the Spall Hall circuit. No one knew who Dylan White was back then. He got a 2-year ban. I just wonder why, like, with some, is it the severity of the substance? Did they look at Jack 3D and say, well, look, it's not, and I've never used Jack 3D, but from what I was told when it was the old Jack, because you can still get Jack 3D now, but apparently it's nowhere near as good. But back then, that stuff was the you-know-what. That stuff would keep you going for ages, like, serious amounts. There was also another one now, I would imagine it's banned. I would imagine it is, as in banned from UCAD and VAD and stuff, called The Curse. You used to be able to get that on Amazon, and I remember people in the gym telling me about it, and like literally it's a skull on the box, and people were telling me, like, as soon as you took a drink of that, like, your whole lips, everything would start tingling. That's how strong it was. Like, some people told me they used to actually use it to cure a hangover, because you could be hungover from drinks the next day, the night before. You drink that cure, you're not even going out, and literally you are good to go. So God knows, I don't use pre-workouts, but God knows what must be in some of these pre-workouts. They're really like the ones that all the kind of the gym heads go for. Maybe that is why Dylan White only got a 2-year ban. I don't know. But Zolani Tete has a 4-year ban, so that's essentially his career over. And, you know, for me, yeah, they are catching people, which is a good thing. Bans can be just, for some, it's laughable. It really is. Like, some of them, it's a quote-unquote ban, but is it really? You know, when you see people, you know, like, a good example would be the Canelo Alvarez situation. He got banned by the Nevada, I think it was Nevada State Athletic Commission for 6 months. But he fights once every 6 months anyway. In fact, actually, when he has a September fight, he normally fights in May. That's longer than 6 months. That's not a ban. That's just him taking time off. So where's the punishment there? Like, you laugh when you see it, and you're like, we're gonna have to take action. Really? What are you gonna do? 6 months ban? All right. When are you planning on fighting? Well, 6 months. So yeah, it works out pretty well. I would say if you're a first-time offender, I would say 18 months. Probably be roughly. I know Joe Stunner was saying it should be 3 years first time. That really would deter people. But at the end of the day, how are you gonna? I'm thinking out loud here. How are you going to enforce it in different countries? You know. And again, there is the argument, and I'm not saying I am for or against this, but there is the argument where if it's informed consent, would it not make more sense just to let everyone try it? You know, just let everyone juice. because with informed consent, everyone's doing it. It's more of an even playing field. I remember Dell speaking about this in the video where he basically said, some would say that, oh, well, the guys with the bigger money, they can get the better stuff. And it's like, well, isn't that not how it's always been? The guys who have the better amateur career, they get the better pro deal. They might not necessarily be a better boxer than the guy on the small hall show, but because they're able to get more money, they're able to have more fights than the guy in the small hall. It's always been that way in boxing. Again, I'm not necessarily saying I subscribe to that or I think that should be it, but I definitely think that there is you should be able to talk about it in every aspect, whether you're dead set against it or whether you think, just be libertarian of it and just say, what's the point in trying to catch these when everyone's probably doing it? And, again, I'm not saying I'm for or against that. But that's the situation with Delaney Tete. Obviously, we had the Alicia Baumgardner situation, and we also had Jessica McCaskill making a claim that basically, what was it, Eddie Hearn, something to do with Hearn that, I can't remember the ins and outs of it, but it was something like that Hearn might have had an involvement in her failing because apparently she was looking to go to another promoter. When you make statements like that, right, and you do it live on camera, you really need to think about what you're saying, right? And look, when Jessica McCaskill said that, you're instantly opening yourself up to being sued. And of course she went and retracted it and apologized, and it's like, you need to think when you say these things, right? Because if you're making an accusation like that and you've no evidence to back it up, right, you've literally no evidence to back it up, you need to remember, hang on a minute, right, I am literally saying that there's corruption involved. I'm literally saying that someone, Eddie Hearn, is corrupt and he's causing a fighter to fail. And I've no proof of that. And what do you think Eddie Hearn is going to do when something serious like that is said? Well, he's obviously going to take action. Jake Paul stupidly, and it was stupid, went on a video and said that Eddie Hearn fixes fights, or words to that effect. I'm paraphrasing there, but something like paying the judges and stuff like that. And Eddie Hearn, of course, straight away said, right, well, I'll see you in court over that. I mean, you can't make claims like that, regardless of your position or however you feel about the person. You can't just go and make a claim like that without having any semblance of evidence to back it up. Just saying, well, this is what I believe, and this is, or saying this is what I know was happening. It's like, well, sorry, but how do you prove that? And I'm not turning around and saying like you're completely wrong or this is that. I'm just saying that if you're going to make statements like that, make claims like that, you need to make sure you have the evidence to back it up. Otherwise, you could be telling the truth, right? I'm not saying Jessica McCaskill is, but you could be in one situation, you could actually be telling the truth, but you don't have any proof of it. They say, all right, well, I've deeper pockets, see you in court. And what can you do? If you can't fight that, you're screwed. So not too smart from Jessica McCaskill to say that. I haven't heard a rumour of Alicia Baumgardner wanting to leave Eddie Hearn, but look, I wouldn't, if Alicia Baumgardner, any fighter, is with a promoter and they can get a better deal with another promoter, ideally short term, because I've said this and I've always said it, different for prospects turning over, right? Different for them, because they need a good 2 years with a promoter, maybe 3, just to get active. But if you're an established fighter, you should be signing short-term deals with promoters and then basically going for the highest bidder, basically. So if let's just hypothetically say I'm a world-level boxer. Obviously, I'm not. But let's say I was a world-level middleweight boxer and I was signed to Eddie Hearn and I had a 3-fight deal. My last fight's coming up and Top Rank offer me way more money to sign with them. I'd be saying, right, well, how many fights? 3 fights? Eddie, can you match that offer? No. Thank you. I appreciate all you've done for me. Hey, Bob. 3 fights later. Eddie, all right, now we can match the offer. Bob, can you? No. See you, Bob. Back to Eddie. That's the way I would do it, because what's the point in being loyal? It's all about making your money. So that's my thoughts on that. In terms of the Alicia Baumgardner situation, we need to really have we need to wait and see what comes back, to be honest with you. It's another fighter popping. It's not good. Let's wait and see. Now, I saw Carl Froch say this about Bellew's commentary on the AJ versus Helenius fight, and this is what everyone thinks. And I think for someone like Carl Froch, when he started out as a pundit originally, it's weird, right? When Carl Froch started out as a pundit on Sky, I didn't like him. Great fighter, but I didn't like him as a pundit or a commentator, because I felt that he was being a bit too biased, certainly towards the Sky fighters. You know, I'll never forget they had him on commentary for Linares versus Crawford, the first fight. And Paulie Malignaggi was commentating on that fight as well. And he had to pull Adam Smith and Carl Froch up because they were making it out as though the fight was competitive and, you know, Crawford was in this, it's hanging in the balance. And I remember Paulie was going, no, this is one-sided. And it was. Anyone who watched that will know that was a one-sided fight, the first fight. As the second fight was even more one-sided. But I remember Froch and Adam Smith were both trying to make a case that Anthony Crawford was in the fight. And Paulie was just there ringside like, no. this is many things, but but 50-50 is not one of them. It's pretty one-sided in favour of Linares. Through the years, I think as Carl Froch has developed as a pundit and developed as a commentator, he's just kind of, he stopped trying to talk. Because I felt at the start like you would see he was trying to be knowledgeable about boxing when he doesn't really know that great deal about it. Like when you'd see him try and score a fight, he couldn't score a fight to save his life. He hadn't a clue what he was looking for, right? So that was one thing. He's kind of accepted that, and he doesn't really talk about the ins and outs of boxing when you hear him commentate that much now. He just says what he feels, which I think now, especially nowadays, when no one really says what they feel anymore, when Carl Froch does it, it's a breath of fresh air. And he just says what's on everyone's mind. And I like it. And I think with Carl Froch, when he gives his opinion, you know that's what he's thinking. You know, if he thinks that this fighter isn't good, he's saying it. He's just saying it because that's his opinion. He's not trying to be controversial. He's not trying to, you know, ruffle feathers or anything like that. He's saying it because that's what he thinks. And that's what I like. That's what we want to hear. And this is what he said on Bellew. And obviously Bellew is a good friend of Carl Froch's. And he says, Tony Bellew is a good friend of mine. Tony Bellew's got a problem when he commentates on these fights. He's loyal. He doesn't want to give criticism. Tony Bellew finds it difficult to criticise Derek Chisora when he's fighting. He finds it hard to give Anthony Joshua any kind of criticism. So maybe he shouldn't be commentating or giving his analysts on his friend's fights. Fans and people viewing want an honest opinion. 100% agree, and I think the vast majority of listeners will also agree. Tony Bellew could probably be a very, like, if I went and met Bellew and we talked about football, right, we'd probably get on just fine. Talk about football. He's Everton, I'm United. We both had a miserable weekend in terms of results. United against Tottenham was just farcical. The midfield is just not there. Everton got hammered 4-0 at Villa today. So we probably have a lot to talk about in that sense. But in terms of him as a pundit, as a commentator on air, as an on-air personality, for want of a better word, he's just terrible, you know. And yeah, he is loyal, and he speaks a lot about loyalty, and he obviously is loyal to Hearn, because given the fact that when he was with Warren was what Warren did what Warren always does. He bees himself, and he had Bellew in all sorts of trouble, and thankfully Bellew beat him. Thankfully he did, with the help of Dave Colwell and with the help of Eddie Hearn. Bellew came out the other end, and thank God for that, because Warren is what Warren is. Alright, we'll leave it there. And obviously he feels a loyalty towards Eddie Hearn, and that's all well and good, but you're employed by DAZN to be a pundit. And when I listen, like, I love the commentary. I love having commentary on, right? But with DAZN especially, I feel the need to always have the commentary switched off. Which I don't like, because I do like listening to the commentary. I like an analyst or, you know, a commentator picking up something that I might not have picked up on, and sometimes it just adds to the experience. But when you're listening to, especially DAZN, even without Bellew, it's awful. I mean, it's just awful. Costello, ugh. Barker, ugh. Andy Lee is a great pundit, but not a particularly good commentator. But Bellew is just the cream of the crop when it comes to awful. Because, yeah, he it's not just Derek Chisora and Joshua. He will find a reason not to criticise any matchroom fighter. Which, again, fans want an honest opinion. They don't want someone being pulled up by the other commentators for being too biased, which is what happened to Bellew in the Joshua fight. So what Carl Froch is saying there, there's nothing he's saying there that you could turn around and say, oh, he just hates, but he's friends with Bellew, but he's just saying what everyone else wants to be said. When people see a show, you look at the gold standard. The gold standard for me is always HBO. It's always been HBO. And they were impartial for the most part. Yeah, they had people who they wanted to win, you know, back like when Pacquiao was their guy. They obviously wanted him because they were selling the network. They pretty much running the network. But they were still impartial. They had very good chemistry. You know, Manny Stewart, Roy Jones, Larry Merchant, Jim Lampley. It was phenomenal. And everyone's opinion was theirs. You know, if Emmanuel Stewart I used to love because he used to just get so riled up in the fights. But Manny would just say it like it is. He'd give his opinion, as would Roy, as would, you know, Jim Lampley on several occasions. You know, even if a referee wasn't doing a good job like Lawrence Cole, Jim Lampley'd be straight in there saying, well, he's a terrible referee. So I agree. I've gone on a bit long with this one, but that is 100% spot on what Carl Froch is saying. And I hope the Zone do eventually kind of listen, because it seems like it's always happening now, that every time Bellew is more in the show than say he was last night, people complain. And it's not good, like, if it's a constant, like, if the Zone came to me and said, gee, we need some feedback, I would be saying, look, it's not good where fans are saying we want to mute the commentary constantly. That's a problem, right? As a consumer, you're paying for the Zone. You should be able to listen to the commentary and not feel the need to, like, I have to mute this because they're talking. Because I guess in some ways, for me, it's like they're actually insulted our intelligence by telling us, blatantly can see what's going on, and they tell us something completely different. It's like, no, we're not that stupid. We have eyes in our head. We can see what's going on. And when someone is saying, oh, this is, and he's carrying him, it's like, mate, come on. Enough of that. So that's what I would be saying there. And look, it's been a consistent thing where people have criticised the DAZN commentary. It's been consistent, you know, as I've said. For me, Ade is great at what he does on there. Andy Lee as a pundit, not as a commentator, as a pundit, is very good. That's it. The rest of them, I would just do a complete overhaul with the Zone and just clean it up. That's what I'd do. If it was me. But again, I'm not in the Zone, so I can only give my opinion. The WBC have announced that they've cancelled the final eliminator for Andy Ruiz versus Deontay Wilder. Should have happened as soon as the fight couldn't be made, to be honest with you. The WBC will reevaluate and may make a new ruling at their convention in flipping November. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to announce a mandatory. They could announce another eliminator, which will have to take place early next year, and it might not get called until the middle of next year. So Fury has carte blanche now to do what he wants, which is completely disgraceful. You know, at the end of the day, right, the WBC can say, oh, well, you know, we try and make blah, 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 blah. You've literally pulled mandatories out of tin air for other champions, and don't lie and say that's never happened. Artur Beterbiev, 2021, Marcus Brown hadn't fought a WBC sanctioned bout in God knows how many years. He had a loss in 2019 and he won fight in 2021, which was a 10-rounder at 180 something pounds, no WBC title on the line, and somehow he's plucked out and told you're mandatory for Artur Beterbiev. So absolute BS when they say shit like absolute BS when they say stuff like that. And you know, oh well, you know, we have to go. No, you can do it when you want to, right? For champions you don't care about. But when it's champions who you prioritise, oh well, you know, this, that, this blah, 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 blah. Yeah, nonsense. And the WBC needs to be put on blast on it, because it's absolute nonsense. Because Tyson Fury now, he'll have his fight with Ngannou, or whatever you want to call it. He'll move on from that. Probably wait for Usyk to fight Herkovic or whoever. But it's probably, I don't think I wouldn't be shocked if we're doing more videos about Fury making up outrageous claims as to why he doesn't need to fight Usyk. And then, of course, you'll have the Frank Sanchez's of the world, the Bakodis of the world, the Makhmadovs of the world saying, can we fight? We're ready to go. And we'll get Warren and GAD saying, oh, well, who are they? They don't really, he doesn't need to fight them. I mean, who the hell are they? I mean, it'd be a waste of our time putting that on pay-per-view. Yeah, like Tom Schwartz was a waste of your time, but you put that on pay-per-view, and Otto Valin was well, no, you put that on pay-per-view too, and yeah, both guys were unknown and obscure, and you sold them as world title fights when they clearly weren't. But somehow, asking for Frank Sanchez is unreasonable. Yeah, make that make sense. But that is the situation there. WBA, on the other hand, now have given a 72-hour deadline until tomorrow to provide an MRI as proof of an injury to postpone the purse bids for Rolly Romero versus O'Hara Davis. WBC already requested an MRI on August the 8th, but are yet to receive it. So Rolly is trying to get out of the O'Hara Davis fight by the looks of things, and probably looking to get a Tank Davis fight. Maybe that looks like what it is to me, or maybe it's something like they're trying to do Ryan Garcia versus O'Hara Davis for the interim title. God knows. O'Hara Davis, if he fights Rolly, will be world champion. Because I was thinking of doing, right, So I haven't done a documentary type video in a while, and I was thinking of doing my top 10 worst world champions of all time. And Rolly Romero will be in that. This guy is garbage. I mean, he is the weakest champion in boxing, period. Right this minute in time, there is no champion worse than Rolly Romero. And Rolly the guy is garbage, and he's a world champion. O'Hara Davis is chopping at the bit to get at him, because O'Hara Davis is smart enough to know I can beat this guy. Because, like, literally, this guy went life and debt, and other than a BS stoppage, would have lost to a 40 in inverted commas. I'd say he's older than that. Ismael Barrosa. This is Rolly Romero. So if I was O'Hara Davis, I'd be like, yeah, give me that fight, please. Give me that fight, please. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Now, Terence Crawford was on Joe Rogan. I'm glad to see Terence Crawford is getting on podcasts like Joe Rogan. He deserves to get his name out there. He deserves to be getting on some of these shows, and I'm glad now. I'm not the biggest Joe Rogan fan now, I have to say. I wouldn't be the biggest Joe. I very seldom ever listen to him, to be honest with you. He's not really for me. But I obviously know his podcast is massive, and just because he's not for me doesn't mean, others shouldn't listen to him. And it's nice to see Terence Crawford on there. He's declared on that podcast that he wants to jump up 3 weight divisions and wants to fight the winner of Canelo versus Charlo for the undisputed super middleweight title, to go up from 147 to 168 and to win. Wow, I want to be a 3-time undisputed. Why do I think he's being serious there? Look, Crawford is a exceptional, generational talent. But 168 is a bridge too far. It is. 154 is his limit, I think, now. Against Alvarez, even though Crawford is tremendously talented, and he is truly tremendous, there comes a point where the size factor is just too much. Where you could be tremendous. You could be better. Like, he is a better fighter if you were just to strip him down to the bare basics. He's better than Canelo. But the size difference just counteracts that. It does. And, it'd be like, imagine when Bernard Hopkins was fighting at 168 pounds near the end of his career, he talked about coming down to middleweight to fight Floyd Mayweather. And some people would say, like, imagine Mayweather at 147 against Bernard Hopkins at 160. I'd always say, look, Hopkins would win that. Because, yeah, Floyd is closer to his peak, but the size difference is just too much. Floyd would never have beaten Bernard Hopkins at 160. And, of course, if you talk about prime versus prime, good luck. There's no way Floyd would. Obviously, Floyd wasn't near 160 in his prime, but you could be a better fighter. But the size difference becomes so much. Look at Lomachenko. Lomachenko is really a 130 pounder. He's fighting guys much bigger than him at 135, and against Haney, arguably he won it, didn't get the decision. Lopez, though, that was just too much. And do you remember when I think Loma had just fought Rocky Martinez, and Terence Crawford was at 140. There was people actually saying that Loma should fight Terence Crawford, and Bob Arum actually came out and said that would be, and I quote, suicide for Lomachenko to do that, because obviously he knows you could be, and like that, just imagine, God knows that would have been suicide for Loma. But you could be a great fighter, tremendous fighter, but sometimes it's a bridge too far. I mean, not everybody is going to be a Manny Pacquiao who can go from flyweight to 154. Not everyone is going to be like that. That's an exception. That's a rarity. And I think with Crawford, that is a rarity. It just wouldn't work, I don't think. So that's my thoughts on that. I think this video has gone way too long. And that's pretty much most of the news, because there's not a great deal of news in this week, but I'll do my best to get this up tonight. I'm probably going to do a review of the week tonight, Sunday. I'm going to go to my neighbours and get it uploaded there, and then I'll probably upload the Usyk and Dubois videos tomorrow. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is back, because it's been a nightmare not having it. So I'll leave it there, and that's the reason the camera might not be as good, because I have to use the old camera, because obviously I used that iPhone for my news, so I'm using my current one for the news today, because that has data, that one doesn't, and I need something to film and record it, because obviously I can't use that because there's no data to look at the news. So yeah, long-winded one, convoluted one. I'll leave it there, people. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. 12,400. We're 600 off 13k. Let's do. I'd love to do it in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure we could. We're doing over 100 subscribers a week now, so long may it last. Long may it last. If we do that every week for a year, that's 5,200 subscribers in a year. Not too bad. Not too bad. People, I'll leave it there. Smash the like button. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.